Right. 7 November 2020, and I'm joined by Mr. Tinashe Jonas from Ideal Zimbabwe. And so we're just starting now. Mr. Jonas, are you hearing me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Right, so I want us to quickly start. We've got a very short amount of time to deal with this topic. And what I want us to talk about is the United States elections. Have you been watching?
Keenly so.
Okay, so these are very exciting and they're not yet decided. What have been your views on the United States elections of 2020, especially the presidential elections?
My views has been my views has been that leaders must promote institutions of democracy, especially like the electoral bodies, and also encourage people or citizens to vote, and that their vote counts. But when a leader undermines an election, it makes after elections by nature they divide people into their different groups of depending with the candidates they support. But immediately after the elections, it must be a healing period, and then the healing period can translate into the period of building the economy, unity, and development. But now, when a leader refuses the election outcome or declares himself a winner, he is basically urging his supporters to be more radical and to hate to further the division between his supporters and his rival.
Okay, so what have been the similarities between the Zimbabwe election of 2018 and the United States election that we're waiting for the results now?
The similarities, number one, is that Donald Trump becomes the Chamisa version in Zimbabwe, someone who believes in himself, that whatever he says, whatever his opinion, Donald Trump takes opinions as facts. And Chamisa also takes opinions as facts. Donald Trump undermines the election body, or the American election body, the same with Chamisa. Donald Trump declares himself the winner before even the official results, the same as Chamisa. Donald Trump, they filed a lawsuit, I think I forget the name of the state, 3 days ago, and they lost the lawsuit, and they said, the mayor of that state said, it was obvious because we were facing a Democrat judge. Nelson Chamisa is on record saying Malava, the justice system in Zimbabwe is captured. No matter MDC Alliance is the party that runs to court more than any other party in Zimbabwe political history. And then also Donald Trump is even now is the filing for the state lawsuit, but it is clear that he's going to lose, and he's going to also say the democratic machinery is against him. He's also in blaming the high-tech companies like Instagram, Facebook, that they are against him. They favor the Democrats. He's also blaming the amounts of money that the Democratic Party is spent in campaign. Basically, he's blaming everything except his voters, and he's claiming rigging. So I mean, to me, it comes as a. And remember, Robert Mueller, the Trump advisor and former a lawyer of the Justice Department of US, said Trump is behaving the same as the Zimbabwean opposition. meaning even his people or former people, they're associating his behavior to an opposition leader from Zimbabwe, which is basically Nelson Chamisa. So I think it's actually a twin of the Zimbabwean 2018 elections.
Okay, let's look at high turnout. The American elections had the largest number of votes in history. Yeah. And in Zimbabwe, when Chamisa came on the scene, we also had the highest turnout ever. Now, if Trump had had a normal turnout, he probably would have won. And Chamisa, if he had had a normal turnout, he probably would have won. Do you think Mnangagwa benefited from the high turnout?
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course he benefited, because if eventually you are declared a winner, it means you had so many, every aspect of the election was somehow your privilege. Yeah, he benefited from the high turnout.
Okay, so what did Chamisa do wrong? If you look at the Democrats, they had many people coming out voting by mail. Do you think Chamisa's strategy in 2018 was wrong, despite the high turnout, that he ended up not winning against Mnangagwa, who had less of a charismatic campaign than Chamisa?
All right. First, I will start with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was supposed to win this election, but he made a terrible mistake. His mistake was to undermine and to reject the postal vote. There is no scientific data to indicate that any postal voter would be a Democrat. But Trump vehemently rejected the postal vote and said it's prone to rigging and everything, thereby discouraging his supporters from postal voting. He encouraged his supporters to go vote in person. In these times of COVID-19, and we know that Trump is COVID-19 policy was a disaster. There's a real danger and fear in US voters around the COVID-19 attack, because the death toll is hovering over 200,000. Now, the postal vote, remember, this is the pandemic election. So the postal vote was encouraged high turnout, because people said, okay, fine, I can vote within the comfort of my place, and that's why this election has got a high turnout, because of postal vote. It's so convenient. So now Trump's supporters were restricted to in-person voting, of which since it's a pandemic election, they were hugely discouraged. But now the Democratic supporters embrace the postal vote, because their party encouraged it due to the circumstances of COVID-19. So I think Trump caused voter apathy. And then we go to Zimbabwean situation. Mr. Nelson Chamisa did a terrible mistake. The terrible mistake is Mr. Nelson Chamisa was always on record that I know my brother is going to rig the election, but I've got an anti-rigging election machinery which is in place. The moment you indicate that the election is going to be rigged, Zimbabweans have got a painful memory that Morgan Tsvangirai has been always being rigged, and he died without assuming power. So for Nelson Chamisa to repeat the same rhetoric that the election is going to be rigged, but I'm still going to win, already he caused his supporters to not to go and vote, because they are not motivated. They know that if there's rigging process taking place, surely no one can rig for the opponent to win. So that rhetoric, to me, it made most of MDC supporters not even to register, not even to vote.
Okay, that's great. So now let's go to vote counting. It's taking a long time for these results to be counted. And this is one of the reasons being given by Chamisa when he's talking about rigging. He's saying when they were counting there was something wrong, something was going on. Do you think Chamisa rushed to conclude that because the results were taking long to come out, then there was rigging going on?
When the results are taking long, I think that's what we need, because remember in the case of US, every state, when they declare the election, the Trump campaign team is waiting for any anomaly and file a lawsuit. They are before the results are being announced, they are already recording anomalies on their lawsuit. So the same as the Zimbabwean government, before the election took place, Mr. Chamisa was already declaring that the election is going to be rigged because there are no reforms. It automatically gives a lot of spotlight on ZEC. It gives a lot of spotlight on, so the ZEC would try to make sure that there's no mistake, and then delay the process.
Okay, so do you think then, given what has happened in the United States, should our opposition parties start accepting the results which come from ZEC?
Okay, it's not a choice, it's a must, because national interest must come above personal and party agenda. The problem of us opposition parties in Zimbabwe is that we think you want to be a president, and then you want your party to be in parliament. You don't think about the repercussions of your utterances. A good leader would compromise in situations that the national interest and the national security is threatened. Because no matter how many are my supporters, I don't need to create enmity to widen the gap between my supporters with ZANU-PF, with MDC, with any party. So true leaders who are patriotic, they safeguard two critical or fundamental aspect of democracy, which is national interest and national security. No, our supporters must not clash, must not fight, and then no one must hate one another. After election, the first hour, leaders must come together and unify the country, so that because there is no development without unity. So utterances, reckless utterances, they create animosity among supporters and voters, and they sabotage direct foreign investment, they sabotage foreign policy, they sabotage everything.
Okay, now let's go to what Joe Biden has done. Joe Biden has come out twice since it became clear that he's winning. Yeah. And he has made speeches of reconciliation. He has told his supporters to be patient. Did Mnangagwa and Chamisa do the same during our elections in Zimbabwe?
They didn't do that, but I would then appreciate what President Mnangagwa did, because Mr. Nelson Chamisa said this on record, that the ED campaign team tried to phone him and he refused to take up the call or to discuss with them. So although ED didn't address the nation, but at least it's a good move to try to reach out to your rival. I think in future, he must, as the president of the nation, he must calm the nation and even opposition leaders must also address their supporters and the country at large to talk of peace and talk of patience.
Okay, then let's go to the issue of international observers. It's clear that the United States elections are not perfect. But I did not see the European Union, the African Union, and all these other international observers that come to Zimbabwe. I did not see them speaking in the US. Even the UK, they did not make a tweet or anything. Maybe I didn't see it, but it was not like now they've not declared anything. Why is it that African elections need observers, but countries like the United States are not getting observers?
Our government and our political parties and all the citizens, Africans, we hate ourselves. We don't have confidence. We don't have pride in our blackness, in our Africanism. We always respect anything that has got that is white or something from the Western. That's why you see events happening in Zimbabwe. No one can tweet in Zimbabwe a tweet that can go viral more than a tweet from the US embassy, a tweet from the European Union High Commission in Zimbabwe, a tweet from the British embassy. Any tweet from those institutions or Germany, whether it is, you find it in many WhatsApp groups or social media platforms. But a tweet from President E.G., a tweet from ZEC, a tweet from any government institution, it's not given the spotlight and attention it deserves. We suffer from self-hate.
Okay, so you are saying the reason why we are inviting these foreign observers is because we think it can only be fair if they declare that it's fair.
Yeah. Remember, our problem is that we don't know how to manage our economies because to rampant corruption and incompetency, because we choose our leaders because of the role they play for you to be in power, the role they play in the war of liberation. We play politics more than development. We don't value meritocracy. We don't value capacity. We don't value talent. So at the end of the day, our governments are staffed with the incompetent people. Now our economies are failing. Now we rely on foreign aid, foreign loans or line of credit. So virtually that makes us we are not captured by the Western world. We surrender ourselves because we don't believe in talent. We believe in cadre development. We believe in staffing your friends, your tribal, your race. So as long Africa doesn't value talent, our resources are going to be wasted, and we are going to rely on charity, and we are going to rely on loans from IMF and World Bank, and then we will remain captured. We'll be told what to do. But these loans, they come with conditions, and those conditions, they make us puppets forever.
Okay, now let's go to strategy. I want to continue going back to strategy.
Yeah,
the Democrats, they did very well in the cities, in highly populated areas, and on the postal ballot. Do you think this was a deliberate strategy, or it was just a matter of hatred for Trump?
Okay. Let me concede that in any competition, the winner, it's obvious that your strategy was better, because you don't become a winner by default. So obviously the strategy of the Democrat was good. What was the biggest problems of Mr. Trump? although Mr. Trump, by 2019, he scored the lowest, unemployment rate in the history of US, and he was good in terms of the economy. Stock exchange was performing everything. Wall Street was happy. The problem of Mr. Trump was actually, I can say two problems and three problems. Now, number one, character. He was so arrogant. He was coming out to Americans as a nuisance, tweeting everything, and he was so arrogant. Number two, his foreign policy was a disaster. Because Mr. Trump withdrew US from 10 international treaties, including World Health Organization, when currently the world is shaking and under attack from COVID-19. And many countries then despised him. And these are superpowers. Many countries like China, Russia, and I mean, those countries have got money and they're powerful. So these countries, automatically, they to support the Democrats, they to support the president of Joe Biden. And number three, Mr. Trump, again, the issue of despising the postal vote. So I think Mr. Trump also's mistakes were a bonus to the Democrats, because remember, it's not easy in America to remove a sitting president. It has happened only 3 times. Now, if Joe Biden is declared officially the presidential elect of US, he becomes the 4th out of the 96 presidents of US. 92 times opposition has failed to unseat the sitting president. So it will be the 4th time, meaning Mr. Trump mistakes benefited the Democrats.
Okay, so let's say we are going into 2023. Chamisa's political party has been broken up, and now we are only, they say, 2 years away from the elections. Do you think he's ready to win? And what are the implications if Chamisa was to lose in 2023? What are the implications for Zimbabwe's political landscape?
If Mr. Chamisa continues on the same rhetoric, and the biggest mistake currently in MDC Alliance is that they think populism is a strategy. Populism is not a strategy. It's a bonus on top of strategies. So right now, beside the populism and the mantra, mukomana nevanhu, mukomana nevanhu, mukomana anodiwa, other political parties, including ZANU-PF, they know for a fact that no political party in Zimbabwe doesn't know that Chamisa is popular and is well known. So it's any party which is planning against Nelson Chamisa, they're going to diffuse that he is popular, fine, but how can we deal with that? So I think MDC Alliance must move away from populism and venture into political strategy, number one. Number two, Mr. Nelson Chamisa must be a Zimbabwean. We want him back to be our brother. He must denounce sanctions. He must embrace other leaders. He must recognize the ED as the president of Zimbabwe. He must respect ZEC, the courts, everything. Because if by chance he wins in Zimbabwe, he must run a country that every institution is democratic, is well respected, and every opposition party in Zimbabwe will also respect him and honor him. It will make his life easy. So, he must be a patriotic. He must know what is national interest. He must know what is national security. For example, the MDC alliance denounced much. They denounced CIO, the security department of the country. For Mr. Chamisa to be alive in Zimbabwe, for instance, if you hear the speech of Joe Biden, the last speech today, he never even mentioned Donald Trump, and he said God must honor our troops. Almost every leader in America, they respect their troops. They respect their secret service. Right now, there's a tension between Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden. But the secret service, which is the CIO in Zimbabwe, has moved in to protect Mr. Biden. So imagine if Mr. Biden was always on record trashing the CIA, which is the CIO in Zimbabwe. Who would protect him in this time of need? So as leaders, we should respect the CIOs, we should respect the army, we should respect the police, we should respect the prisons. Otherwise, these are the same institutions we would want to work with.
Okay, so you are saying that although the two men were competing, that is Trump and Biden,
yeah,
they still did not turn away from their national institutions.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the issue then of sanctions. Yeah. Zimbabwe is under sanctions because of electoral reforms, media reforms, military reforms, among other things. Do you think then it makes sense for the United States to impose sanctions on Zimbabwe for electoral reforms when they've got the very same issues in their own country?
Okay. I always talk to my friends and say, reforms or no reforms, what is important in any country is unity of purpose. Well, remember, reforms are written on paper. And we don't want ZANU-PF to reform dragging their feet. What we want in Zimbabwe is the government of Zimbabwe, if they do reforms, they must do reforms in good faith. In a way that Zimbabwe, it needs all of us. But if reforms are done in bad faith, let me give an example of media reforms. An opposition can get interviewed once in 2 months. Once in 2 months, they can give one opposition leader an interview and say, you see, we are doing it. So in that way, it won't be 5% reform is not a reform. So what is needed in Zimbabwe is unity of purpose, to know that this country we can't fight if we want to build one country. It's like we are 10 kids and our mother is collapsed and we all want to revive here. There's no way we can fight, because the more we fight, the longer the fight is taking. The mother can eventually die. So and we don't need rules how to revive our mother. We need good faith. So what is needed in Zimbabwe is unity of purpose, national interest above individual and party interest. Secondly, sanctions in Zimbabwe are not caused by electoral reforms or whatsoever. Sanctions in Zimbabwe are caused by bickering, by greed, by a wrong domestic policy. We are fighting for power. We are not fighting for better lives for all. We are not fighting for development. You won't hear in Zimbabwe that ZANU-PF and MDC are fighting because they want to build a road between linking Harare and Victoria Falls. There's no fight in Zimbabwe that ZANU-PF want to buy wheelchairs for Jairus Chiri. And then MDC is saying, no, let us buy them. We don't have such fights. The fights are for power. Leaders are greedy. Leaders are selfish.
Okay, now let's go to the final point, which is the point of a GNU. Trump has been beaten in total out of 74 million votes that Biden got and 70 million that he got. So that's 145 million. Trump was beaten by less than 100,000 votes. Do you think he should ask for a GNU?
A GNU, when I hear it in Zimbabwe, I laugh. Why do I laugh? A GNU, number one, it defeats democracy. The objectives of democracy are defeated by a GNU. Why? The results of the elections are an indication of what people, of the language people have spoken. Election results are the language of the voters. Now, if then you do an election and then you see how the voters have spoken, and then you come back to be a GNU, what it means is that you are saying to your voters or the citizens, you are saying majority doesn't rule. What rules is the GNU talks that are done in the corridors of five-star hotels, Mikus Hotel or Sheraton Hotel. If we read GNU talks, they reduce the power of the voters into the powers of the principals of political parties who are negotiating. That's the first the problem of a GNU. The second, GNU is an indication that the leaders, they went to elections, they are in power, they are leading their political parties for their stomachs, because a GNU comes with privileges. So a leader who calls for a GNU is a leader who is saying to the people of Zimbabwe, I am greedy, I want to eat. So no matter this party won or lost, I want to eat. So a GNU is a feeding scheme to the leaders. Number three, the call for a GNU is then if now ZANU-PF and any other party now they can do a GNU. What it means to me is that GNU must be done at the promise that we don't want any political party in Zimbabwe anymore. Because we should not waste money. Zimbabwe's economy is bleeding. But then we do election. We finish the election. We do a GNU. We do election. We do a GNU. If there's any GNU now, the leaders must promise us that this is the last GNU and we don't want any political party. All those political parties which are going to be part of the GNU must denounce themselves and freeze their political parties. Because we don't want games. We want leaders who represent, who are principled, not leaders who jump from blue to yellow to red every time. To the point that people will ask, in Zimbabwe now, what is happening? Is there a GNU? Is there what? We want principles in our politics. We want sanitization of our politics. We need a vision in Zimbabwe. If there's any GNU now, those people must not come out of the GNU and start again campaigning with their political parties. They'll be playing with the people of Zimbabwe.
Okay. So it's been almost 2 years or more than 2 years since the elections. How do we get out of this election mode? Because Zimbabwe is still in that election mode, highly divided. Everyone follows their own political party. They are not concerned about development in the nation. If there are demonstrations, one side is happy that there are demonstrations. If the economy is not doing well, the other side is happy, hoping that they'll be able to get in. In conclusion, how do we solve the problems that we have in Zimbabwe, which are caused by elections?
No, this problem are not caused by elections, but it's elections. They are a logo of democracy. Elections are a language of voters. Elections are the pride and the proof that majority rules. But in our country, we have got citizens who doesn't supervise their leaders. In Zimbabwe, we have got citizens who dance and sing for their leaders. Our people in our country have surrendered power to their leaders. If I analyze a leader right now, if I analyze the leader right now, the supporters will come to me and insult me because they are saying, don't touch our leader. Our leader is God. So the problem in Zimbabwe are caused primarily 95% by Zimbabweans, not by leaders. Zimbabweans, they don't love themselves. I can't say they are useless, but I'm tempted to say Zimbabwe citizens are the most useless people you can find on the planet Earth. They are useless. I'm tempted and I'm saying it because Zimbabweans, they've surrendered democracy to their leaders. They don't even criticize themselves. Look at US right now. Donald Trump is saying I'm rigged. The Republicans, 90%, over 90% of senators from the Republican Party and their Congress leaders, most of them, they're quiet. Some are even openly opposing Trump and saying you are injuring our democracy. But in Zimbabwe, you go to ZANU-PF, the party leaders, they will be praising ED. Sometimes I'm now tempted not to blame ED because people, even within the Politburo, I don't believe in the Politburo. There are people who also criticize the president. I don't believe so. They must just go there, they sing, they finish, they go home. You go to MDC party, it's the same. They sing for Chamisa, they finish singing, they go home. So our problem are not leaders. As citizens, we create dictators.
Okay, Mr. Tinashe Jonas, this has been a very interesting discussion in the afternoon, and I think everyone now needs to take a break and do something else. I had a number of people wanted to join, but I think let us bring this to an end. We've got a lot of comments here. We've got over 200 comments. You can always go and look and see what people are saying. But I get your point that Zimbabweans, they always look out for solutions, whereas the solutions are inside. One of the things that concerns me is there space for a young person who wants to contribute in Zimbabwe? For example, take the issue of Hopo Chingono. If he's arrested and is in jail now, is this what is not causing this polarization that people end up saying, okay, let us remove the whole system of ZANU-PF, let them fail, and then we'll put a new system in place? Don't you think this winner take all comes from there?
All right, thank you. First, let me correct that the Hopo Chingono is not a young person. He is 49 is roughly 50 years old. So Hopo Chingono is not representing young people. He's not. Then secondly, Hopo Chingono must be arrested, let me say, probably every month. If I was the president of Zimbabwe, I was going to arrest Hopo every month. Why? So that he makes his money. I mean, Hopo is getting money from donors. Hopo is not running any business. The gods he is claiming to run are not giving him any money. I mean, our opposition or activists, they get money from being arrested, you know. So let's not talk about that. The more Hopo is arrested, the better his life would change.
Okay. I think let's end it here, Mr. Tinashe Jonas, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been almost 40 minutes. We had planned for 10 minutes. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Yeah, I want to say, including myself as a citizen of Zimbabwe, we are useless people. We worship a prophet. We worship Nanga. We worship a leader at any level. And 2020, Zimbabweans still believe in anointing oil. Zimbabwe believe in stupid things. We still believe in miracles. The Bible says we are created in God's image. What does that mean? It means we are given legs to walk, hands to use, mind to think. The Bible talks of wisdom. Zimbabweans, we don't want to use the wisdom. We don't want to think. We want to believe in stupid miracle. What? Why are we going to school? Why are we doing all these things to improve our minds? But we reduce everything to anointing water, anointed milk and stuff. We can do better.
Okay. On my part, I do agree with you. And I think there's more to be done, especially when I look at the comments. I'm very disappointed with the young MDC supporters because obviously they are not listening when you talk to them, especially when they're giving advice. I find it quite strange that the media in Zimbabwe is suffering from both sides, from the MDC side and from the ZANU-PF side. If I look at some of the comments here, it shows that people are not yet ready to run a democratic country. In fact, on both sides. But I see less insult from ZANU-PF than from the MDC guys. And I wonder what will happen if MDC was to go into power. Are they going to become quite harsh on the media, on democracy? I find it a very difficult thing to imagine.
No, thank you. Thank you. You touched on that. At some point, okay, MDC Alliance has got a media brigade that are paid. If you check these comments, you do realize that there's one person can even comment or 5 times, and there are some comments. These are 90% of these comments are coming from ghost accounts, and some people are even commenting same comment almost every time. These are people who are paid by MDC Alliance to comment bad about anyone who has got conscience. So that it looks like when people read comments, they say Tinashe is crazy, no one listens to him. It's not true. When ED is talking, he is getting negative comments, so that the picture is like ED doesn't have support. Mr. Chamisa doesn't believe in the media freedom, in democracy. It's only when Chamisa is speaking, those brigades, then they comment. One person probably has got 20 accounts or more. It's only when MDC is alive is speaking, they get positive comments. He is desperate. Mr. Chamisa is desperate for power, and I don't want to believe that his visit to Ghana to meet whatever person who baptized him, who gave him some chance to become a president. I will never think that it's what is happening, killing his member of parliament. I don't want to be tempted to think that way. Mr. Chamisa might do anything. He can even take a spambo to be a president. We don't want that desperation.
Okay, Mr. Jonas, I don't think Chamisa went to Nigeria to do that. I think that people just die. I mean, if you look at ZANU-PF MPs, they're also dying, and probably because of coronavirus, people are dying. Right. So, Mr. Jonas, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who's watching here on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to have you back after the results are out, after we have a new president in the United States, and we see how that goes. We want to see the transition, obviously. Is Trump going to accept the results or not? Very, very interesting, because it's so close. And we might end up with our God, George Bush situation.
That one I can answer you. Mr. Trump has already showed us his stats. He won't accept the result.
Okay. So I think, let me call you back. Today is Saturday. I think by Monday we'll have an answer. And there are people who want to join. If you want to join, you always WhatsApp me in advance and you can talk to Mr. Jonas. And I also want to point out that Mr. Jonas is the most watched politician in Zimbabwe. Chamisa does not have as many interviews as Mr. Jonas, not only on Gambakwe, but on many different channels. That's why I bring Mr. Jonas, and I have got a lot of respect for your views. Personally, I've known you for over 2 years now, and I think you are doing a great job. And I hope that you do great in Zimbabwe. In the future, we are very young now. We can look back in 20 years and say, this is where Mr. Jonas started. Because I don't think we should just love someone who does not talk. We should love the people that we are hearing now, who is you, Mr. Jonas. If there was an election now, and I was asked to choose, I would vote for you, Mr. Jonas.
So 2023, I want to get a 0 vote.
You get 2. Mine and yours.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Jonas. So we'll talk again very, very soon. And to everyone who's watching, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.